The goals of the insurgents in Iraq are far different from the terrorists that had their genesis in Afghanistan. Let us not be confused between the two conflicts or their origins or those against whom we fight. I now yield 5 minutes to a veteran of the Korean War, the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Conyers.
Gentleman from Michigan is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank our chairman, Mr. Skelton, and I stand proud today with my fellow veterans in the House of Representatives to register our opposition to the President's plan to escalate the war in Iraq and to show our support for our men and women in uniform. Now, last November 7th, the American people sent a clear message to Congress and the President. We must end the war in Iraq. Now, after nearly 4 years of bloodshed, death, and destruction, Congress is likely to go on record as opposing the plan for escalation of this war. No longer will Congress stand by while the President wages a war that defies logic, common sense, and human decency. This week, we shall take a stand. This week, we tell this administration, enough is enough. Stop ignoring the American people. Stop ignoring your generals. And by the way, I include, to the gentleman from New York 2 speakers ago, General Colin Powell, no less, agrees with us. Stop ignoring the foreign policy experts. Stop wasting American lives and resources on this disastrous and unnecessary conflict. This week's debate on this resolution represents an important turning point in public dialogue about Iraq. And so I welcome it, but it is not enough. The escalation must be stopped, and we cannot let the momentum against the war subside after we deal with the escalation. Our priority must remain ending the fighting and dying in Iraq. We must end the senseless deaths of service members like Marine Terrell Hill of Southfield, Michigan, who only last Wednesday died when his vehicle drove over a bomb in Fallujah. Terrell Hill was 19 years old. He had joined the military to help finance his education to become a chemical engineer. I don't want to see one more promising life like his extinguished on the altar of this administration's arrogance. The loss of Terrell's life brings to mind the bereavement of another patriot from Flint, Michigan, Lila Lipscomb, whose 26-year-old son Michael died in Iraq in April 2003 when his helicopter was shot down. A member of a military family, Ms. Lipscomb initially believed President Bush when he told the nation that war was necessary for our national security. But her son's letters from the front lines and his tragic death showed her that he should have never gone to Iraq. I need spend little time explaining my opposition to the troop surge, which is simply even more of the same. This policy is going in precisely the opposite direction recommended by the generals who get transferred if they don't agree. It would simply expose GIs to more intense door-to-door fighting in the vain hope that in the meanwhile the Iraqis will miraculously reconcile with us still being in their country. The real and underlying question is how we remove ourselves from this quagmire. As I have emphasized many times, our Constitution gives Congress the the central role in decisions of war and peace. Last fall, the American people spoke loudly with their votes. We should be here showing the voters that we heard them and that their trust was well placed. The ultimate, unequivocal authority of the Congress is the power of the purse, and so we must use it. Supporters of the President's failed Iraq policy have argued that using Congress's spending power to end the war means that we don't support the troops. It is beyond absurd to suggest that those of us who favor ending funding for the war would simply abandon the troops
Time of the
in
gentleman
the
has
field
expired.
without equipment and the supplies they need.